A brand is your differentiator. Immediately, there's a 30+% conversion increase in revenue. In academia, there was a lot of education required when ChatGPT released, and we've had thousands of people take advantage of that. It reduced our churn rate. Just massive disruptive technology that yielded something like a 15% higher conversion rate.
Could you share a little bit about who you are and what Copyleaks do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Henry, thanks for having me and excited to be here. My name's Eric Bogart. I'm the VP of Marketing at Copyleaks. I've been with the company for a little more than 2 years. And what we do is we empower organizations to deploy Gen AI in a responsible, relatively risk-free manner. We have a number of generative AI governance solutions. We're able to detect and flag AI with extremely high accuracy and other solutions to ensure content originality and authentication.
Very good description. Going back into that then, is that your desire to have an impact? Is that why you went into marketing specifically?
No, another great question. When I graduated eons ago from university, I was kind of rudderless. I sort of had this inclination of marketing, but didn't really know what that entailed. My first full-time role was at a PR agency, and a couple months in, I learned that PR wasn't for me. And, it's a facet of marketing, but that in and of itself was not the right fit. For maybe 3-4 years thereafter, I kind of sputtered, not knowing exactly what I wanted to do. Finally, I made a move. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, back home to New York, and landed a marketing manager role where I had a small team under me. It was with a B2B market research organization. That was really the first role where I'm like, yeah, I get this. I enjoy this. I'm able to deliver that impact.
Have you found your current role versus the agency side?
It's a world of difference. On one hand, PR is a facet of marketing. I'm now responsible for the full swath of marketing, of which PR is a consideration. The me of that PR agency going back 20 years is a very different person than I am now. I've clearly learned a lot along the way to be able to operate and lead a marketing team, the AI space, which arguably is the hottest, but also quickest moving space. And, what's true today is not necessarily true tomorrow. And so that requires being able to test new things in a speedy manner, but also there's a growing competitive set we're competing against on a daily basis to be able to outmaneuver them. And, that's something that is new, quite frankly.
Yeah, you kind of alluded to the next question I want to ask in two different ways there. The AI in a bunch of SaaS nowadays is just changing things so fast. Can you break down a little bit of what channels you and Copyleaks are kind of focusing on today in second half of 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. Just for a little bit of context, we're both a B2B and a B2C. We have a large and quickly growing self-serve side, which is traditional SaaS, and also a large enterprise client base with a lot of educational institutions and enterprises from various verticals. Looking at both facets of the business, if you were to do a Venn diagram from a marketing standpoint, there's a lot of overlap, like building a brand. Obviously, that activates both the B2B and the consumer side. But then when you really get down to the brass tacks of things, there are different tactics to deploy on a self-serve SaaS vis-a-vis a enterprise B2B. And the predominant channel that we have for the consumer side is SEO. It's a really strong website from a ranking standpoint. We produce a lot of content. From the PR standpoint, we're building brand recognition. That also has the dual impact of getting a lot of links for quality publishers pointing to our site. So it helps with that kind of flywheel. On the B2B side, everything I just articulated is relevant, but we also do standard ABM. We invest a decent amount in conferences, particularly in academia, to build brand awareness. Now that we have awareness in that space, it's to empower conversations with institutions that we haven't spoken with before, or it accelerates the sales cycle there. We have a regular webinar series, things of that nature.
Apart from the ABM and conference work, it sounds like a lot of the stuff is organic growth or semi-organic channels. Are you doing any paid advertising, or is that not a strong part of your acquisition?
I would say it's a minority versus majority part. Within an ABM strategy, there are paid channels. We also deploy paid on the consumer side as well. The way that we're viewing the website is it's the entry point for self-serve, obviously, but also we found that to be a very powerful gateway for B2Bs as well. Do their own homework ultimately leading to filling out a form and then having that conversation with their sales team. And more times than not, they're an informed potential buyer who understand at a high level what it is that we're able to provide. It therefore ensures a more informed dialogue that allows that deal to be accelerated relative to, say, if that weren't such an informed, educated user.
That's a very interesting dynamic.
We found many examples of B2Bs coming in through the consumer channels. They buy a $10, $15, $20 plan, whatever it may be, and ultimately graduating to the B2B side. And maybe, they're ready for a larger plan. And we found that to be very effective. That model, I believe, is based off of Shutterfly, and where there's that consumer side, it's providing incremental revenue, but predominantly it's that gateway to the B2B side.
Okay. So back to your earlier point that you heavily invested in brand early on, which is atypical for a new company because typically they have to get results early on and go for performance marketing. Are you finding that brand marketing has helped institutional adoption?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's cliche and I'm more data driven versus gut driven, but a brand is your differentiator. That establishes everything and is, in my opinion, the foundation of everything that a marketing organization can do. And I've seen a lot of examples with people in my network where I'm getting pressure to just launch an ad campaign, but there's nothing there from a foundational standpoint. Like you could launch an ad campaign, it's not going to do anything without a brand and without the content around. When I joined a couple years ago, and for context, Copyleaks was around for maybe 6 years at that point, just secured a round of funding and they were doubling down on growth hiring. The website existed, there was a logo and things like that, but that's not a brand. And one of the key and early projects that we did was a brand exercise. Who is Copyleaks? What do we want to be known for? Who are our ICPs? What problems do we solve? And so we ultimately leveraged findings from that exercise to launch an ad campaign that would have more impact, build out our content strategy, understand kind of our conversion funnels. So I get that there's obviously pressure to grow, but it needs to be done in a pragmatic, intentional approach where the brand is like that foundational element.
Given that your primary ICP is more of the institutional buyer, how are you optimizing your acquisition and onboarding funnels versus the traditional PLG and the consumer student?
Yeah. So in an attempt to answer that, for academic institutions, their problem is that they need to ensure academic integrity, both from a plagiarism standpoint and with the release of ChatGPT 3.5 to prevent AI content. So I think that problem solution, hey, Copyleaks provide you with a solution, they're sort of baked in and has been baked in. And I think that goes back to ensuring that you have a brand and people knowing that this is a brand that has those solutions. I think where things are a little bit different is more on the enterprise side, certain verticals. Just to give an example, there are problems that exist across different verticals, and I'll use media and publishing as an example. This is a relatively new problem of LLMs taking a publisher's content, think like Forbes, New York Times, Washington Post, or A, without their permission, but B, then regurgitating that content and plagiarizing it in their outputs. A problem that's getting a lot more attention, but we as a brand, we're doing that from an acquisition standpoint in these verticals. We're identifying, clearly articulating, hey, here's a problem and why you need to be concerned with it, when here's a potential solution to it.
You mentioned earlier that Copyleaks was started 6 years before you joined.
Yeah.
Has the crazy run-up, hype cycle, whatever you want to call it, of AI, the amount of plagiarism, done a really good job of helping educate the institutions, companies, as to the problems that you're helping fix?
Yes, I would say so. But in academia, there was a lot of education required when ChatGPT initially released. For about a year thereafter, this massive disruptive technology. You could imagine the disruption in academia. The initial knee-jerk reaction was, ban it, you can't use it, right? But in reality, it opens a lot of doors. Part of what we had to do is provide thought leadership in this space. Okay, ChatGPT is here. Here's what you need to be concerned with. Here's what you don't need to be concerned. Here's what our recommendations are. Here's your playbook, if you will, to ensure responsible adoption. What's really interesting is what was sort of rumored early on that, with ChatGPT, this is the end of plagiarism. In fact, that's not the case. We've done a 13-month longitudinal study of dozens of schools who have used Copyleaks before ChatGPT, at the release of it, and after it. We saw the significant increase of in AI getting flagged in student assignments. And we still continue to see plagiarism. It's declined, but we still continue to see it. Something like 17% of all papers analyzed contain some extent of plagiarism. And what's even more interesting, in my opinion, we've done another analysis that shows that ChatGPT is apt to plagiarize itself. So whether it is human plagiarism or LLM plagiarism, it's still very much a thing. And from that analysis, 60% of ChatGPT's outputs contain some degree of plagiarism. When we first did that, I was floored. Going back to our content strategy and market education, we put a big PR push behind that analysis, got a lot of attention, highlighted by Axios among other tier ones. That just goes to show that, we put out that thought leadership, but also leverage it to inform the market of, hey, plagiarism's still a thing. It's not going away. Oh, and there's this added wrinkle.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like it's very much maybe not a traditional acquisition funnel. It is very much more consultative, educating the institutions on the need and being a thought partner for how to solve the challenges.
I think you have done a great job articulating in a succinct way what I was unable to do, which is that it's consultative. It requires market education and a strong content strategy to gain awareness and start to acquire some of these marquee names. Absolutely.
That's such an interesting way to flip your outbound. I don't think that's traditional within B2B SaaS. It's a lot of just cold calling, dialers, like get 300 reps, hit numbers every single month, and batter down the doors of people instead of this slightly more elegant approach.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it doesn't work. Maybe it works in markets that it's clear problem solution like academia, right? Yeah, arguably there it works. In the publishing example that I just shared and other specific use cases, a lot of it is just market education. People may not know that this is a problem. And when SER sending out a blitzkrieg of calls or whatever, or what have you, it's not going to do a good job articulating it. And I think that's a good reason why a good portion of pipeline is coming from inbound. These are people who are aware of us, digesting our content. Perhaps we're the early adopters ahead of the majority that understand the problem and are looking for solutions. Our inbound represents a large portion of pipeline, and it's not a terrible surprise to me.
How did you get the confidence to do that though? Because trying to start from the top of funnel where people aren't even aware of the problem is a much longer sales cycle than what most marketers do, which is like ordering the funnel. They're already solution aware sometimes. And it's just very easy to attribute a marketing campaign if you're going after as low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for giving the illusion of confidence there, but I would say it's kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. Again, going back to education, the problem solution dynamic has changed, but even in a pre-ChatGPT world, plagiarism was a thing, and we were a solution to employ that. So I would argue that is more of that traditional quick to flip acquisition from a demand standpoint. When a post-ChatGPT world, looking at the other use cases and solutions that we employ, that's what requires more of this heavy-handed education approach, where it requires thought leadership, it requires analyses, it requires that PR push.
That's a very interesting way to look at it. But I like that you admitted there's no guarantee or certainty. It was a little bit of a scary thing to do.
Yeah. And look, I could be wrong. I've been wrong many times before, but I think we have examples that we could point to. It's the right approach. This whole Gen AI thing is still shaking out. There are developments in near real time. We have an election today in the States. How that transpires with the new administration from an AI policy, there'll have to be further, evolution there. You just have to be quick and nimble, ready to experiment and fail forward is how I like to say it. Not everything's going to work. And if something doesn't work, you learn from it.
The first time I ever had a campaign where my budget was on the line and it crashed and burned was a pretty terrifying thing. You kind of just start to learn that 1 and 2 may not work, but job failing forward, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I agree, but I really like it because arguably you learn more from something not working out than something working out. There's been a whole host of swing and misses here from myself, the team, et cetera, and you just learn from it.
Okay. Talking about another thing that you've done a lot of experimentation on, especially over the last few months, your pricing page. It's maybe not something typical for a CMO to lead, but you made quite a few changes. And I'm not sure if you can share the numbers, but you've gone pretty great improvements. Are you able to share the sorts of improvements you've seen over the last few months?
Yeah. So a little bit of context there. At my prior role, I studied pretty extensively pricing theory. And that's a big reason why I led the whole rethink of our pricing page. What I had in place, and I don't say this as an insult to anybody, I hope it's not taken that way, was functional to get somebody to check out. And that was that. It didn't deploy the different tactics and strategies to say, drive somebody from a monthly to an annual, or drive somebody from a low plan to a higher plan, or drive somebody from a single item to multi-SKU, et cetera. And so when we released the updated pricing page, we did a lot of A/B testing to refine it. Immediately, there was a 30+% conversion increase in revenue, and some guidance from you as well. We were able to further increase the conversion there to the point now where everything's been deployed. I don't want to say there's nothing more we could do. Of course there is, but all the low-hanging fruit's been deployed, and arguably some of the high-bearing fruit as well. We're at a point where the vast majority of purchases, well into the 80s, are for the bundled plan. That is done both by the way things are being positioned on the page, by discounts, by being clear about the discounts. One of the changes that we did, we initially had a % off versus dollars and cents off. We saw that dollars and cents yielded something like a 15% higher conversion rate, the bundle package, as we call it. We've seen a significant increase in the average purchase price over the past 6 months. I'll be honest, I'm not sure why that's happening. I'm going to take a deeper dive in the weeks ahead to understand, but there's an interesting dynamic that's happening. Going back to brand, people are loyal to a brand that they have a positive experience with.
I think the fact that so many people are now buying your bundle plan when you've got a large number of students, maybe for other institutions where you're an adult with a little bit more disposable income, that is an easier choice. But I worked at student-focused companies, and trying to get them to those higher tiers and bundle options is an incredibly difficult thing. So the fact that you manage that is genuinely incredible. Were there any major changes or like fast-acting changes that you saw?
Yeah, I would say the most significant change was students are the most fickle. One of the things that we implemented this year, and I think it's something that you and I talked about when we first connected, was instead of just easily allowing anybody, but in particular a student, from canceling their account, to be able to pause that and come back to it 2, 3, 4 months thereafter when their semester restarts. We use a third-party platform to empower them. And we've had thousands of people take advantage of that. It reduced our churn rate. A large portion came back.
To share a little bit of a passing story with how you and I met, when I started looking into your pricing page before our meeting to make myself more aware and help provide recommendations, my heart sank a little because I looked at your pricing page and I was like, oh crap, okay. You've actually got the vast majority of easy and impactful wins where most don't. And I was like, shit, how am I going to provide value to this guy? We talked about a lot of other things in that call, but the pricing page was really on point by the time I met you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And you found some opportunities as well, which we've since built out. In the past, this wasn't the case, but we have a very product-led growth strategy where before, if a user runs up against a lack of credits and they're looking to do a scan, in the past, we would send them a light box. Hey, buy more credits. Fairly simple. Now, all purchase circumstances are routed back through that page. If you run out of credits, maybe you're trying to do a scan for plagiarism, but you don't have credits for that. The hero message on that page is dynamic.
How do you balance incremental wins versus going for the big swings that have a lower chance of winning?
We don't always know what may be incremental and what may be a major win. We're probably going to have an inclination, but we've been wrong before. The way we've treated not just that pricing page, but A/B testing as a whole, it is we have a document that has all of the experiments we've conducted thus far, the results of them, and also future ones that anybody on the team is curious about and wants to test. And again, what you or I may suspect may not do that, or vice versa. What we feel may be a boulder may just be an increment. I like being wrong, but unless you have a vigorous A/B testing schedule, you're not going to find that out. And, I've been doing this for a while, Henry, and the one thing that I've observed is difficulty employing a regular cadence of A/B testing, whether it's lack of resources or not knowing where to start or some other challenges. It's always been something that I've experienced. Part of what I enjoy here with the team at Copyleaks and is there's an appetite for that, and we move quickly, and there's always something that's live.
I remember you shared a Trello board and there were multiple tests you were running based on our second or third call, and you constantly going through new things.
Yeah, totally. What's really interesting, I forget the name of the software. They pitched me a couple quarters ago. The thing about an A/B test, it captures a moment in time, and then you push the winner live, right? But there's going to be a lot of variability in a business, whether it's seasonality, the ICPs that are coming to your site, et cetera. I came across a platform, I can't recall its name, but it empowered ongoing live A/B tests in a real-time manner. And so what you would do is set up a standard A/B test. You would get a confidence level. But using AI, it would understand the different cohorts of users. Maybe some users are more inclined for the losing variant than the winning variant. So it would continue to analyze and slice and dice that traffic and send them what it felt were the right variants. And so imagine that at scale, maybe 10, 15, 20 A/B tests that you'd set up that are funneling traffic like that. That's really interesting to me. And it comes at a high price point, but certainly something to explore.
That's such a fascinating idea. And I guess for you guys as well, specifically, if version A beats version B in spring, but over the
That's
summer,
right.
when you've got a lower amount of students or higher propensity to churn, lower usage, then version B could actually be way more effective, able to have a sliver of traffic always going to different versions, even if they had lost in the past. Is a very cool idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe in an A/B test, this variant one, and maybe in another, this variant. How do they work together, right? With a platform like that, you're able to kind of get a view of the different cohorts, control for seasonality, but you're also seeing how all of these A/B tests play or don't play with each other. It really got my attention.
Talking of testing, you talked about earlier, increasing bundle purchases, but are there any areas you're looking to improve in the next 6 months?
Oh, I'm looking to improve everything. To be specific, we get a wealth of traffic on this website, but when you do the math, there's diminished conversion from traffic to a guest, further diminished from a guest to purchasing. So what can we do to inch up all of those different conversion points? One of the things I'm fairly bullish on, and I don't think this is going to solve everything, but I think it's going to move the needle, is we recently, in fact, last week, announced a new major feature for our AI detection. It's called AI Insights. And it's the first of its kind across any AI technology that shares not only if content is AI, but it provides insight into why it's AI. So it'll highlight key data points and reasoning behind providing truth, if you will. And it's one thing to message it. It's a whole other to see it. We're a little behind in terms of getting that built on to our main traffic driver and conversion point page, which is our AI detection page. In a few weeks, the iframe technology where you could do a scan for yourself will be replaced with that so that users could see it in real time. And it's really a key differentiator and game changer. I'm fairly bullish that it'll help all of our conversion points, both the user that visits the site to becoming a guest, and then from a guest into a paid user. So that's a product specific conversion point.
There are plenty of open source and free products like GPT-0 that say, oh, this is 88% likely to be AI. And they've even got up to like 99, 100% certain that it's AI. And then it turns out that it's completely original. By them not providing reasoning and proofs, it's actually quite dangerous, irresponsible, and certainly not ready for institutional use. Being able to actually prove why is an amazing thing for the enterprise.
100%. And what you just articulated is a big challenge of ours. Going back to December 2022, we were the first AI detector on the market. It's since been saturated with commodities like the one you just mentioned. You know, to take my word for it, there's been all sorts of studies. The vast majority of these, it's a coin toss in terms of accuracy. That's really sullied this space where we get a lot of resistance. Why should I believe you? I saw this or read this. And it's like, sure, that may be true of these commodity type players, but there are these more enterprise, much more accurate platforms that exist today, including us. We feel that not only is it going to separate those commodities from the more serious players, but it's giving the user an explanation why, hey, this is AI, and therefore opening up that black box. I can't get into specifics, our data science team has found a lot of other AI-based signals that share further evidence and explanation to the user around why something is AI versus not.
I can understand why you can't share it, given that you reveal the tricks for detecting something. It makes their job a lot easier.
Absolutely. I'm sure some competitors may be listening to this conversation, but we're working on a number of really interesting developments.
That's very cool. Talking about one of your other big bets that you're hoping to do, this desire to get better at upselling and increasing the average order value. It's important because there is so much drop-off on a landing page. But were you thinking about this for your student user base or the enterprise side of things?
This would be for students. So right now we have 3 SKUs that a user could purchase: AI content detection, plagiarism detection, and what we call the bundle. On the pricing page, you could imagine it's pretty straightforward from a visual standpoint. It's, there's been thoughts about adding another product to the self-serve side. From a pricing standpoint, it would be just a couple dollars. There's a number of different ways that we could potentially price it out. It could be added to the pricing page, but my concern is that would get complicated because we're going from 3 columns, arguably 4 if we have an enterprise column, to multiple when you consider all of the different purchase opportunities. So we're looking at something like 9 different options. My thought and my inclination, giving a very low price point and to keep that pricing page clean because it's working, is to present it as an upsell opportunity in the cart. We know we already have an engaged user base who's probably going to make a purchase, maybe by articulating it, hey, for 30 cents a day, get access to this. I think it's a much cleaner way to present it, and in theory would have a higher conversion than baking it out on the pricing page. Curious what your take is and what your read is on that.
Oh, way to put me under fire there. As you've said, there's no way to know what works, but the fact that there are plenty of multi-SKU companies on the consumer side, and none of them sell in this way you're describing the pricing page, would suggest that this kind of UX doesn't really work. It does confuse the users. The only way I know how to sell multiple SKUs at one time is to get somebody on a call and have that more consultative face-to-face thing. So what Rippling does really well, can sell you 3 of their products, and then they actually broaden out and sell you 7 on the first kind of call. 2 months later, they'll sell you another 2. A year later, you've got a whole suite of like 20. But that doesn't really work when the user has got to do all of the education, all of the decision-making on just one pricing. So I think you're right. I think upsells, order bumps, bundling is probably the best way to go. But I'm sure all of those monetization flows, they're not done commonly or particularly well in SaaS. There are 2 industries that do it well. One, the guys selling you courses, info products, and then the e-commerce industry. The info product guys have a well-defined flow that you might be able to follow. They'll run ads to a lower ticket item. This can be anything like a book at $20 or even a course at $1,000, which is perhaps less relevant to you. But then to try and increase the average order value, they'll use basically a trick, which is an order bump, which is what you're describing your idea as. Before you make the purchase, they offer you the additional product in your cart, which you can just add like 1 click. There are also upsells, but it's a higher ticket thing after the purchase. I think that probably works a little bit more for your enterprise, where if you determine somebody as an enterprise buyer, you get them through the purchase and then you say, book a call as your upsell option. The best practices for order bumps and what we're talking about here, one, the best way to do it is to have the item be highly related to the item they've already chosen to buy. So one, you could actually run another experiment where you don't just give them the option of purchasing the AI writing assistant, which you're talking about with AI insights. You could actually give them the option to buy extra credits in that cart for the order bump. And then the other thing is just, as you said, it really needs to be a low ticket item because you're going to get an impulse purchase out of them. And you're just trying to get them to go through the flow. You don't want them going, oh, okay, this is a bit too rich for my blood. Let's sit on it for a day and come back to it, because then you're losing the conversion. Have you ever looked into the B2C e-commerce brands? They're really good at this order bump in the cart. If you looked at Ridge Wallets, Hexclad, all of these players, one of the major things they do is gamify it and give you a certain level of cart spend to hit. So if your product is $150 a year, they'll basically give you a free extra reward And so you just need to nudge them over. But if they commit to you an extra $25 a year for an AI writing assistant, then you can maybe give them $35 of extra credits a year or something. I'd be very curious to hear your opinion on gamification. One of the first product tests I ever did was a gamification thing, and it earned far too much money for my company. I'm not sure it does a super great job for the most part in product engagement, but for these slide out carts, essentially every single e-commerce company that's fairly advanced has these. The law of large numbers suggests that it must work for this sort of user journey. Have you ever thought about running these sort of upsells where once the purchase is done, either buy a couple of extra seats for team members or actually book a sales call with us to get your whole team on this? I'm aware that I've kept you far longer than I promised, but I really just want to say this was so fun to chat about. Your insights into both B2C, but also B2B marketing were just incredible. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you.